Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Lucid and today we're going to be covering One Piece chapter 962. So before we begin, one thing I'd like to say is that this review will function more as an analysis as opposed to your traditional review. So I will not be rating this chapter as that's a bit subjective, uninteresting to me, and opinions change over time, especially reading weekly versus in volume format. I also won't be recapping what happened as I'm pretty sure you've all read the chapter, and any description I provide pales in comparison to the visual storyteller that is Oden. What I like to focus on are characters, their journeys, the storytelling, stray observations, themes, and how things connect. With that intro out of the way, let's begin. Let's start off by talking about Oden. It seems Oda is using Oden almost like a surrogate Luffy. They share a lot of the same qualities. Oden's always on the lookout for adventure. It seems like he only just recently heard about Ashura, and the idea of going into a dangerous region to fight an incredible foe is Luffy in a nutshell. He values freedom and isn't a fan of rules that prohibit him from doing what he wants. If it was Luffy in his position, he'd be trying to get out of the country as well. As we see in this chapter, he has the ability to win people over despite his unconventional manners, just like Luffy, and just like when the Straw Hat Grand Fleet was formed, Oden also doesn't want followers because that goes against his ideas of freedom. Ironically, it seems like Kinemon might be his Bartolomeo. And just how Luffy charged into Enies lobby, we see Oden charge solo into Kuri to face down Ashura and his army of bandits. Finally, it seems like Oden also has an inability to read people's true motives, as this chapter confirms that Oden was right and that Orochi is already up to no good. Now moving on to his retainers, it seems that the pacing has picked up tremendously as we've seen Oden recruit several retainers and future scabbards in one chapter. There seems to be a theme of abandonment amongst the future scabbards. We have Denjiro, an orphan with possible ties to the Shimotsuki clan. Kanjuro, an outcast trying to become a painter. Raizo, rejected by Konoichi who left the Oniwa Banshu. Kiku and Izo, who lost their family after their father became a criminal. And holy hell, Izo was a welcome surprise. This confirms a lot of what the fan community suspected, which was Izo and Kiku must share a connection, and that Izo might have been an original scabbard that Kiku replaced at some point. And being brothers trying to make it into dance and performing arts ties this connection nicely. This connection also helps tie Kiku nicely into the group as he was there in the beginning as well. And being so young, Kiku had to grow strong to take over Izo's role. When the scabbards rushed after Oden when he charged into Kuri, it seems Izo and Kiku used opposite weapons. Izo, who now uses a gun, was holding a sword, and Kiku, who now uses a sword, is holding a pistol. I hope we get further elaboration on that in the future. This also seems to support the idea that Marco and the remaining Whitebeard pirates will be coming to Wano soon, and we might see a reunion between Izo and the scabbards. And if Denjiro does end up being Kyoshiro, we'll still have 9 scabbards supporting the Kozuki clan. Now, let's talk about the scabbard that received the most highlight this chapter, Ashura Doji. I want to start off by mentioning, in his introduction, the first thing he mentions is that he hates privileged people. This is very in line with his character and explains his encounter with Kinemon during Act 1 when Kinemon first tried to recruit him. Ashura had spent 20 years scraping by after Oden fell. He had seen it all, so when Kinemon came back and asked Ashura to join, Kinemon was unaware of how much the people of Wano had suffered. And in that moment, Kinemon came to Ashura from a position of privilege. This goes in line with his initial rejection. It was Oden who he alone fought in Kuri, and the other scabbards weren't even there. His loyalty was to Oden, who showed him a new way of living, not the Kozuki clan and not the other scabbards, just Oden. After establishing Kuri, we get an idea of Ashura's life before Oden. He'd never seen peace until that moment. He was an outcast abandoned by the world. It begs to ask, what did Oden see and experience during his fight in Kuri that made a man who wants to be free and leave Wano all of a sudden wanted to decide to rule over others? We've seen in One Piece, fights are often clashes of opposing ideas. During their class, something about Ashura spoke to Oden and changed him, and in turn, Oden changed Ashura. Now fast forward 20 years later, it makes sense he reverted to his old ways. Peace no longer exists. It wasn't meant to last. Wano is even more chaotic than it's ever been, and to him, those villagers holding out for peace to return are delusional. Even though there was purpose in Toki sending the scabbards into the future, Ashura once again was abandoned by the world. Finally, we get to the end of the chapter where Nekomamushi and Inuarashi are washed up ashore and found by Kawamatsu. Interestingly enough, these are the non-humans of the group. Just like the Straw Hats who start off as a crew of humans, Oden, like Luffy, took in non-humans and they became his nakama. Because they washed up on a beach, the prevailing idea is that this must be Kori Beach, the same beach that Luffy and Big Mom washed ashore on. This implies they must have entered Wano the same way as the previous two, which explains how Kinemon, a man who had never left Wano before, knows how to sneak in. With that in mind, this scene must take place near Amagasa Village, the Braided Hat Village, which makes total sense because Kawamatsu is always wearing one. How did I not see that? We can probably expect to be seeing Kitetsu soon, as he also lives near here. Maybe we'll even see how one of the Kitetsu blades are forged. But finally, Amagasa Village is in the Kori region, so Oden should not be too far. The Minks and the Kozuki family have always had great ties, and based on how indebted the Minks are to the Kozukis, especially Oden, it's safe to say that these two will play as catalysts for getting Oden out to sea. I'm starting to get Moana vibes. This also connects nicely since Neko and Inu both sail along Whitebeard as well. We can probably expect Oden, Neko, Inu, and Izo to make the journey to sea while the other scabbards stay back to protect Kuri. This ties nicely to our final two main characters. We saw in chapter 942 Oden and Yasui's first interaction. This was right after Oden had left the capital and right before he ventured for Kuri and became daimyo. So the only place for that scene to have taken place was in the previous chapter. In 942, we know that Hakumai Port was already established. This should lead us to believe that Yasui is going to be playing a role in aiding Oden to venture out into the world. We can expect that scene from chapter 943 of Kinemon and the scabbards captured by Yasui to happen soon, as it will be the first time that all 9 scabbards are together. Now, as mentioned earlier, we are getting a clue of Orochi's true nature of being a dirty trickster. Being that Orochi worked for Yasui, he has full access to the port leading to the open world. We can infer this is probably how Orochi first met Kaido. Based on his relationship with Oden and how he seems to dismiss Orochi's obvious lie, we see that Yasui has a soft spot for misfits. Oden probably has been trying to sneak out of Wano through this port, and considering how many times Oden has failed, it's understandable how they were able to build a friendship. We're starting to see the early signs of the man that will eventually father an entire town of misfits in Ibisu. However, as conniving as Orochi is at this time, it's hard to see him do the horrible things that he does in the future. We might soon see Orochi's greed continue to grow and force Yasui to disown him, causing Orochi to strike a deal with Kaido, usurp his former master, and take over all of Wano. If Orochi controls the port, it makes sense how Kaido and his men snuck into Wano and took over, especially when no one has ever been able to before, leading us to the fateful day of Oden's passing. The last main topic I want to point out is the logbook we were introduced in this chapter. Oden mentioned that sailors from the outside world use these to keep track of their journey. This is a nice callback to One Piece lore established during the East Blue when we first met Zeph. I'm curious to know how Oden knows that though, maybe from Yasui. At the moment, it's a narrative tool that allows us to help speed up the pacing of Oden's flashbacks, otherwise we'd be here forever. However, it could potentially serve as a fantastic device with emotional and plot relevancy down the line if the book still exists. There might be entries there during Oden's time on Whitebeard and Roger's ship. Brief tangent here, because of the time skip, we can now confirm that Oden was not a part of God's Valley. The God's Valley event took place 38 years before the modern timeline. We have now fast forwarded to about 34 years, missing the God's Valley incident by about 2 years. I'm very curious to see how Oden and Whitebeard met. We might see a parallel between Ace and Oden since they both seem like hotheads who won't back down. Oden very much fits into the type Whitebeard would want to have as a son. We possibly might see a montage of Oden attempting to kill Whitebeard like Ace. At this point, I don't think Oden has fought anyone stronger than him. So this might play into a reason that someone with the qualities of a king and as stubborn as Oden himself would sail under someone else. Then all that's left is to become a second commander and after meeting Roger, leave the ship and the position vacant. Whitebeard might have left the position open indefinitely for Oden to one day return. And it might have been an Ace who was in Wano during the time of Kaido's rule 3 years ago who informed Whitebeard of Oden's death. With one of his sons dead and the position vacant, the similarities Oden and Ace share could inspire Whitebeard to promote Ace to the 2nd Division commander as a successor to Oden. Okay, headcanon over. I also expect this journal can be a great way of learning more about the Kozuki family's secrets, what he learned from Toki, the poneglyphs, and more. This can be a wonderful exposition tool to give us more insight on endgame content. And finally, in Oden fashion, a note to Momo and Hyuri that will have us all in tears. With that, we come to the end of this chapter analysis. If you're a fan of this content, please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment below on what you like, use your hockey and share below observations that you may have noticed in this chapter, and leave feedback on how I can continue to improve. This is my first time doing this, so it's very much appreciated. And with that, I'll see you all next time. Odin really loves his puns. We see the young scabbards eating a bowl of Odin while camping out on their way to Korea. Knowing that Odin is boiled to death in Odin, the scene is oddly unsettling.